Hey, good morning, food friends. Hope you're all doing awesome out there. My name's Lee. Thanks for joining me today on Dude Talking Food. Today, I want to share my recipe for an herb and goat cheese frittata. We make frittatas almost weekly. It's a great way to extend your meal budget. So, today I'm going to show you the recipe for this herb and goat cheese one. This is sort of like a quiche, but not really. Frittata is put into the oven hot, where a quiche is put into the oven cold, so it sets up a little differently. Not a huge fan of quiche, but love frittata. So let's get going on this recipe. I can't wait to share it. Starting this off, I'm going to dig through my fridge, find all my fresh herbs. I'm going to cut up about one bunch of parsley, two large sprigs of sage, rosemary, dill, and mint. And this was all the sage and dill that I had, and half of what I'm showing of the rosemary and the mint. If you've got cilantro that you want to add, you can just cut the parsley in half. So half a bunch of parsley, half a bunch of cilantro. We want to get this all chopped up, all the thick stems removed, and we're going to chop this up pretty fine because we want this all mixed. We want to get all the herbs in every bite. So we want this chopped up really, really well. Next, we're going to cut a small onion in half, then cut that into slices. Then we're going to cut those slices in half. This is going to allow the onion to cook faster once we get going because we don't really want big chunks of onion in our frittata. And by the end, you're not even going to know that they're in there. Now, this step is a little controversial. Normally in a frittata, it's almost all eggs and no dairy. Using cream and milk starts to push this into a more custardy quiche territory. But I'm going to use some Greek yogurt, and what this allows this to do is to cook a little bit more like a frittata, and we're stretching out our servings and adding extra protein with our yogurt. I'm using about a cup, cup and a half, a heaping cup. I'm slowly going to add these 12 scrambled eggs to my yogurt mix. I'm going to wait for the yogurt to mix in smoothly at the beginning, and then I'm going to add in more eggs as I go. By the end, we're going to have a smooth, homogeneous mixture, and we're also going to add in some salt and pepper here at this stage and make sure that it's all mixed in thoroughly. Now that we're prepped, we can start cooking. I'm going to use a high rimmed 10-inch saucepan for this. I like it because it creates a little thicker frittata. You can also use a 12-inch pan if you want it thinner, with sloped sides like a normal frying pan. But what we're going to do regardless is we're turning our stovetop up to medium, and we're going to add 3 tablespoons or more of olive oil in our pan. This is a very, very olive oil friendly recipe. The eggs are going to drink this up when we're baking it later. We're going to add our onions first with a little bit of salt and pepper. This is going to take about 15 minutes of sauteing total on medium until they cook down enough. We want to break them apart so that they're not stuck together. We want to keep them moving every minute or two so that they don't burn or brown too much. Awesome. These are starting to cook down. And like I said, we want to keep them moving every minute or so. We don't want them to get brown or burnt. We want them to cook down and go translucent. The longer you cook onions, the sweeter they get if you don't brown them. So we want to get them to this translucent stage, and then we're going to start adding all the rest of our ingredients. Getting these onions cooked down properly is probably the longest part of this whole recipe. Now that we have our onions on their way and they're cooked down and they're starting to get all translucent, we're going to add in 2 cloves of garlic that I grate in, and we're going to let that saute. If you add the garlic too early with the onions way back, it's going to burn and go bitter by this point. So we add the garlic after we get the onions where we want them to be. We're going to give this another minute or two of sauteing and stirring it around, and then we're going to add in all our chopped herbs. Add it all except for just maybe a tablespoon or so at the end for garnishing. If you don't care about the garnish and that little sprinkle at the end, just dump it all in. It doesn't really matter. We're going to mix this all up, keep sauteing for 5, maybe 6 minutes, stirring and scraping every minute or so. And remember, we never have had this above a medium heat. Once we have all our herbs cooked down, it's time to add in our egg yogurt mixture. We're just going to pour this all in gently and give it a shake to get the eggs and herbs and onions all mixed up and combined. Make sure to scrape your bowl, get all those eggs and yogurt out and into your pan, and then we're going to scatter our crumbled goat cheese. This is about 5 ounces. I crumbled 6, but I didn't use it all because I used a high rim pan. This sort of had less surface area. but it's thicker. If I had used a 12-inch sloped pan, it would have created a larger, thinner frittata, and I may have used all the goat cheese since I could have spread it around more. Once we have our goat cheese in and scattered, we're going to let this sit on the heat for about 30 seconds to start to cook, and then we're going to throw it in a 375-degree oven for about 20 or 25 minutes. If you use a larger, thinner pan to make a thinner frittata, it's only going to take about 15 or maybe 20 minutes, so your pan size makes a difference. You're going to start to see it puff up around the edges, and then this raising is going to work its way towards the center until you have a large puffy frittata cooking in your oven. Here's my frittata all risen, but not fully browned. It was still a little jiggly at this point when I shook it, so I put it back in the oven for 5 minutes more, and now I've got it right where I want it. The sides are pulling away from the pan. It's a nice golden brown, and we're going to let this sit for like 5 minutes to cool and firm up, and then it's time to chow. Thanks for joining me here today. I really appreciate the time that you've given me. I hope that you've enjoyed this recipe and that you've learned something from it and that you're able to make your own frittatas in the future. It's a great way to avoid ultra processed foods and to eat healthy. Thank you all again. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you're not already a subscriber, please do so. All of these actions really help the channel grow. I hope you all have an awesome week and keep eating healthy. Peace, y'all.